Well, Sheila, how did we get ourselves into all this?
Well,
Carry on with our lovely blazers and
I
everything.
started off with Lourdes, and I was going so many times. I wanted to go to Navarre
To see Bernadette.
to see Bernadette, and then was it?
But how were you going to see Bernadette? How did you manage?
We seen a sign in Delgany Church about there was a pilgrimage
The
for
shrines.
the shrines,
Yeah,
and we went to Trays first, was it?
that's right. The first stop
and
was
then
Trays.
we went to
No, it won't be going for.
we went to Bernadette.
Then we went to Bernadette.
That's how we started.
That's how we started. But when we got to Lisieux, it was too short.
Oh yeah, it was only one day.
It was only sort of an evening night,
Yeah.
and you saw the basilica and her little house, Le Basin. Oh, that was
lovely.
magical,
Yeah.
wasn't it? That was gorgeous. And the Carmel at that time was the Carmel. Do you remember
Oh
this?
yeah, it was lovely.
Remember the semicircular room with all her personal belongings, and they had the little speaker in all the languages. Do you remember, Sheila, when you walked into that room?
It was just peace, wasn't it? It was lovely.
You couldn't explain,
Yeah.
and no one talked,
No.
and it wasn't very big.
No.
And that was on. You went in the gates, and it was on the left. And then, do you remember, years after we went, we were devastated. Some new prioress took over, and she'd all these modern ideas, and she changed.
It wasn't the same.
She hid all the things in the church, and she took that circular thing and made a big fancy modern sort of a museum thing. But the atmosphere isn't the same at all. Sure, it wasn't the same. So that was the first year. And then we did the shrines a good few times. And because...
And then we went with the Dublin crowd.
That's right.
Kildare, really.
Yeah, but it was, how did we get... We just saw a sign for it that there was... Yeah, Kildare were going, and that's where we met the late Pat Sweeney. Lord have mercy on you, Pat. There'll never be another Pat Sweeney.
No.
And
he was a real gentleman, wasn't
an
he?
absolute gentleman, and a character beyond characters that you'd never believe was so prayerful and so devout in everything he did.
Yeah.
And Pat, with great fun there, and we went several times with him. And then we got roped into sort of giving him a hand.
Yeah.
And we were in awe the nights. Do you remember? We said, oh, imagine if you could be one of those. Imagine if you could be one of those. And then, do you remember we were down in Rosslare? And when the relics were going back, we went back to see her, to say goodbye to her. And Pat sort of was watching us. We knew he was watching us, and he started giving us little jobs. And then it sort of...
But still we were happy enough with the little jobs.
The little jobs, we were happy with the little jobs. We didn't think anything. And the first thing we got was the crest of Lisieux. And that came from Lisieux, and that was, we thought, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And he told us now to mind it, that it was very special. Out of this world.
Yeah.
Remember, Pat?
Yeah.
Out of this world. And then we had that, we framed that. Then another year he gave us a plate each with the Ireland. Remember that? That was beautiful. And we thought we were somebody. And then little by little we were getting more involved in what we were doing. And we knew he was watching. So the next thing he says, well, now I've been working in the background for the two of you, he says, and it's a tough battle to try and get two lady knights. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Oh, Sheila. And we thought, Pop, we don't want to be knights. We're very happy now in the background. It's grand. And he was we'd go to the back.
Yeah.
And remember when the cathedral, he pushed us right up the front. Do you remember that? And we were hiding.
Yeah.
He stopped the priest, he stopped the bishop, he stopped everybody. Come up here, you two. Do you remember that? And he had us all stop leading the procession in. And we became, I think we were actually, he made us knights, invited us to be knights at that time. And we couldn't believe it, could we, Sheila?
No.
We couldn't believe it. It was such an honour. And now I'm sitting here and I'm saying, do you realise, Sheila, we were the first 2 lady knights? Official lady knights, like
Yeah.
it was just, and he was very selective who he chose, wasn't he? He'd say, I'm not having that one. Like, do you remember that? Oh, and then he'd often say to us, you're my right arm, you're my right hand, remember?
Yeah.
He'd write us notes, but Papa was fabulous. And then by getting involved with that, then we ended up travelling around Ireland with the main relics.
Yeah.
The big relics.
Yeah.
Was that 2001, was it? Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, it would, yeah.
Yeah, and then we, what? No, it wasn't. Well, oh, it doesn't matter about the dates. It wasn't 2001. I think it was the one after that. But never mind the dates. We ended up going around with the main relics, and of course, Pat had a relic of St Thérèse that he brought around. And then it was only after the canonisation of the parents. Do you remember we were at the canonisation in Rome? That was what, 2015, was it?
Yeah, and we got talking to that little boy, what's his name?
Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
Because we were fascinated before we went about Pietro, because we'd been at the beatification and we saw the little boy, and you thought I was mad. Because I just had, he was about 8 then, wasn't he? 7 or 8. And the little fella going up with his parents in the Sioux in the cathedral. And
I think he was a bit older.
Was he? Maybe. But we were there anyway, and I had this thing, I want to meet him. There was 50,000 or more people at it. There wasn't a chance of even seeing him up close or whatever. And fast forward then to 2015, he was in Rome. Do you remember we went down the Saturday and were getting ready for the canonisation?
Oh, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, the canonisation. Yeah, the canonisation. And we went down. Do you remember the little tiny camera I had? And I got into such an excitement state that because I said, he's there, Sheila, he's there. Pietro,
did you let the camera fall?
I let the camera fall. It went into 1,000 bits, and it went all in, and we were behind the barricade, and our precious photographs and everything was in it. And this was the day before the canonisation. This gorgeous, I don't know whether he was a priest to be, a seminarian or what he was. He went around picking up, do you remember he's in the long cassock picking it up? He was Italian, and he came and gave it back.
Yeah.
And the miracle was the camera worked perfectly. Do you remember when even though there was bits?
She got lovely photographs.
Lovely photos.
Yeah.
But that was because we'd seen Pietro and his parents, and obviously they were doing a rehearsal. People thought we were nuts, getting so excited at looking at the two of them. Then do you remember then we came down to where the seats were? They'd put out the seats.
Yeah.
And I asked you, I said, Sheila, where would you like to sit? And I thought you'd say the middle, up the front. And what did you say?
Over on the left-hand side?
It was the left-hand side, yeah. Right in front of that big screen, the left-hand side, and he picked out the seat. And I said, right, Sheila, that'll be grand. Therese will look after that. And off we tootled home. And the next morning we went in, it was like a cattle crush, wasn't it?
Oh, it was desperate, the crowds.
It was like going into the football, you were through this turnstile thing and crushed and everything. And you hadn't a clue where you were going to end up.
Yeah.
And we were pushed and shoved and everything. And believe it or believe it not, we ended up
in the seats.
At the exact seats. And then we just suddenly realised, we looked up, we weren't under Louis and Zélie at all. We were under somebody else that was being canonised. But we said we'll stay where we were. But there was a reason, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Next thing we saw, do you remember the little girl with the heavy glasses walking up? We were drawn to this little girl. And we didn't really, and her mum, but we didn't know why. And obviously she was familiar to us. And she turned out to be little Carmen, do you remember?
Yeah.
She was responsible for the canonisation of Louis and Zélie as well as Pietro. And we're there, we were minding our own business, and the next thing we see them walking up. right beside us, wasn't it? Right beside
Yeah.
the barrier. And it was a magical up here.
Oh, it was lovely.
Oh, I mean, the privilege. We'll be forever indebted to Pat for
Yeah.
organising that, Pat Sweeney as well. And there was a small group of us. And we, this is how naive we were, Sheila. Do you remember we thought Pat would be in having tea with the Pope? And we were there and we said, gosh, after hearing this, 250,000 people seem to go in a flash. And we said, oh, look at that. And we were minding our own business. And the next thing, we couldn't believe what we saw, could we?
No.
Who was coming down? The family.
The family, yeah.
And Pietro.
And of course you had to shout.
No, that was you. You said to me, Roisin, will you shout? Will you scream? Because this is the only chance you'll get. So I let an ignorant roar out of me, Pietro!
Yeah, but he did come over, and the mother and father.
Yeah, and you remember he came over, no, mama, because he'd no English, do you remember? And he gave us the biggest hug.
Yeah.
Oh, and she came over and she hugged us.
Yeah.
And the family were all it was momentous.
Oh, yeah, that should never happen again.
So no, I think yeah, well, it taught me something that when you ask Thérèse for something, there's no time limit, because that was about 8 or 10 years. I can't remember the time span on it. And then we went back and no one would believe it. And we saw Pat sitting having a cup of tea. And we said, why are you here having a cup of tea? Well, why wouldn't I be having a cup of tea? And we said, but are you not having tea with the Pope? Oh, Francis. Well, he laughed and he laughed. And he would not believe us. We met Pietro. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, that was...
But just as well we had the photographs.
Oh, if we hadn't the photographs,
Yeah.
nobody would have believed us.
No.
Definitely not. So that was very, very special, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then we came back and, yeah, we continued to work. That's when Pat had the relic of the parents too. And then we were gifted a relic each of Louis and Zélie.
Yeah.
And that was, we just couldn't believe that, could we?
No.
And that was just, we just thought, oh, wow. And Pat said that was for the work that we'd put in. But you didn't feel like work at all. We loved it.
We loved it.
Absolutely
enjoyed
lovely.
every minute of it.
Every second. And the stories you'd hear. And it was all the emotion. And you would never believe the effect on the most unlikely people, wasn't it, Sheila, that you'd see having the effect? What was when we were going around with the larger relics, what was the occasion that stood out the most with you?
Well, it was different to each place. But I think when we went to Mount Joy, we didn't know what to expect. Sitting up in this van and there a door would be open, then we go through and that would be locked behind us. And
Clon click all the way.
Yeah.
And then do you remember, it was so difficult to get into the little chapel. It was like a little narrow. Oh, and we were going down corridors that certain people had to be kept behind. And there we were sitting like two tulips.
But you just, when you think back, you'd say to yourself, did that really happen?
Honestly. And then we suddenly realised we were the only two women.
Yeah.
And all these prisoners all around us. And there was a chaplain.
But remember we went for tea down there. They brought us in for tea. And we had tea and scones.
Oh, they were the nicest scones I ever tasted. And I said to the warden, is it? No, that's not, the man that runs the prison. And loveliest man, real gentleman. I said, gosh, would the chef mind if we compliment this guy? He's amazing. Where did he come from? He's one of the lads here. No, he came over to the table and we were complimenting him. Do you remember? We were saying, gosh, you're a great chef. And they genuinely were the nicest
they were lovely.
scones. And we just said, they're fabulous, thinking it was an outside chef. And then we learned that he was one of the lads that was
It was one of the
resident in it.
prisoners, yeah.
Prisoners, yeah, one of the residents. But they were so respectful.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, Sheila, you and I coming out of there and saying to Pat, the reverence we witnessed before the relics, how the reverence that was shown there, we didn't experience to the same level in numbers as we did there. Sure, we didn't.
No.
And then we hopped across to the Docus Centre. And you remember Trace had to come down this big lift?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, stop. Then we went over to the Docus Centre and they couldn't believe it because everyone that was resident in the Docus Centre, the ladies' women's prisons, were there. And that was very moving, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of tears were shed there. It was amazing because people that had no belief in anything were just magnetised to it. That was really special. That was really special. And that went on for years. And then we toured Ireland with Pat, and there's many a story to tell about that. And then sadly, Pat passed away 4 years ago.
Yeah.
January 4 years ago. And things were very quiet then for about 3 years. Nothing was happening. And Bishop Cumisky, we have a lot to thank him for. He called a meeting in Avila, do you remember?
Yeah.
And you see, Sheila, he was the main man on the committee that brought the main relics to Ireland in the first place. So he really, really was one of the main men. It wouldn't have happened without him.
Yeah.
There were a lot of other helpers on that committee, but without him it wouldn't have happened. And he called a meeting and we threw out an idea and said that well, it'd be lovely to have Therese reignited, the love of Therese reignited in Ireland. Because remember, there used to be this picture of the Sacred Heart and a picture of Therese. There's one of them in every house in Ireland. And sadly, that's not served the occasion. And then Pat's daughter Marcy was at the meeting as well. And the gentleman over the pilgrimage. And the bishop we were there as ordinary knights, and the bishop just said, right, Sheila and Roisin, you're delegated with the day in Knock, and Marcy, you continue what your father was doing, and you continue doing the pilgrimage. The other gentleman's there, continue with the pilgrimage. And really, when you think of it, he was like St. Patrick, because there was only 3 groups.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? We often thought it's like the Shamrock, the 3 groups. And sadly, we lost Bishop Cumisky last year, and he's a tremendous loss to us, isn't he, Sheila? Tremendous loss. We owe him a lot as well. And that's how the day in Knock started. And was that an easy battle?
No.
We did go through a good few hoops.
We got there.
We did. We had to go through a lot of hoops because really, and we won't say who said it, but there was a gentleman very high up in connection with it that said, well, honestly, thought you were away with the birds, didn't he? Do you remember? Thought we were crazy. Absolutely.